Okay, we're back, and I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from the office. We're North Georgia's only live online morning show. And we decided here on FYNTV on the morning program, we decided when Dr. Tom Price was nominated for Cabinet, HHS Secretary, that the Georgia 6th Congressional Special Election, that we would get involved with that and do everything we can to bring the citizens in that area the most information from the candidates. As you know, there's 18 candidates, 11 registered Republicans in the race, 5 registered Democrats, and 2 registered independents. I think that added up to 18. Okay, I have somebody else doing my math for me. But anyhow, this morning we're joined by Dr. Richard Keatley. Dr. Keatley is he registered as a Democrat in this race, and he joins us this morning. Mr. Keatley, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you?
Very well. Let's go right into this morning. You did qualify, just for our viewers, you did qualify in this race as a Democrat, correct?
That's correct.
Let's go right into health care. Because that is the issue of the day. And just this morning, Republicans have rolled out their website that says, read the bill, introducing the American Health Care Act. And they're wanting to repeal the Affordable Care Act and replace it with this. A lot of controversy. What say you? Take it from there.
Well, yeah, that is really recent news, and of course, this is one of the most important issues on everyone's mind right now. There are in the district 42,000 people that will lose coverage if we simply repeal and don't replace the Affordable Care Act. And so trying to make the Affordable Care Act stronger or to increase coverage, I think, is probably what everyone wants to do, and they're trying to find a way to do it in a way that's not going to break the bank, right? And so it's hard to say what this is going to do right now because they put it out and they said that they're going to vote on it before it goes through the Congressional Budget Office. And that seems to me to be a little bit of a problem. I'm not sure that we should rush this to the point that we don't even know what the economic impact is going to be. Because if they remove the mandate for people to be insured, then we're essentially saying that we're going to give everyone the services that the affordable, and as you mentioned, it went up on the website a few hours ago, so I have not read the entire bill yet. But if they're going to maintain the nice parts of the Affordable Care Act, the ones that everyone likes, which is the pre-existing conditions, not counting those against people, not using gender, not making insurance more expensive for women because of pregnancy and things like that. If they keep those things that everyone likes without finding a way to cover the costs of that, then I think it's going to have some trouble passing.
Well, okay. I mean, it may have trouble passing because there are some Republicans that are not wanting to keep things in the Affordable Care Act as much as they want to move further in another direction than what this bill apparently does. But let's talk about the Affordable Care Act just a little bit longer. Do you think it could be repaired? Do you think there's any need to repair it? And what we hear all the time, we hear it's going to collapse. It's imploding. It's a disaster. Things like that. Do you think it's as bad as it's perceived to be in many circles, or can it be repaired, or does it even need repaired?
Well, I'm sure that yes, I do believe it needs repaired. That it was a solution that was sort of adopted from Mitt Romney's plan that he had put in place up in Massachusetts, and which did not really address the underlying problem, which is that most of the money in the healthcare industry goes to insurance companies who sort of move things around. They're basically accountants, you know, and not from the patient to the doctor. So I think unless we address eventually the cost of health care, and the United States has the highest cost per capita of health care without being anywhere near the top in quality of care, I think it's going to be a problem forever, no matter what kind of coverage program we get to. So I'd be really interested to see what President Trump proposes in this, what the current administration proposes, because he seems to be saying, and granted it hasn't been transferred into policy yet, but he seems to be saying he wants to keep all the good things, and then he's going to finally bring the ability of the government to bargain, for example, for the cost of drugs, the way many large companies do and whatnot. It seems ridiculous that we would tie our own hands and not allow ourselves to get a good price by buying in bulk, like we all do at Costco. No.
Let's move to something else, not totally in another direction, but I read a letter you sent out to people in the 6th district, and you say that you're from Tucker, correct?
I am from Tucker.
And you say right in the second paragraph after your introduction that Tucker was gerrymandered into the 6th district in 2007 in order to give the Republicans yet another seat in Washington. And you say right-wing agenda, Tom Price, and let's see, stomping grounds for Newt Gingrich. So what about the 6th district and the gerrymandering, and why was this important to put in this letter that you sent out?
Well, yeah, that letter, I should, the gerrymandering is, of course, the charged term for redistricting.
Right, exactly.
And it was surprising to me that there was not any sort of information about when districts were changing, that we were in here. It just sort of happened. You know, you receive your voter registration card and the little number under your district changes, and then you have to learn all over again what's going on in your district. And so that's why I mentioned some of my more wiser friends had said you should probably say redistricting rather than gerrymandering, because they have to redistrict, and I know it's a difficult thing. I do think that there's an issue here, and it relates to a lot of things, specifically immigration. I was just the other day, I went down to this place called Plaza Fiesta, which is on Buford Highway, and was just sort of a cultural thing, seeing what was going on there. I don't know if you've ever been.
No, sir.
It is it's kind of an amazing place, and it's filled with only Hispanic stores and taquerias and tattoo shops and places to send money back to Mexico and all of this kind of stuff. And it really made me realize that the demographic changes that we've had in the state are largely, or at least in large part, caused by the number of new residents that are here. And so the immigrants, even if they're not documented, are counted. And then we get an additional representative to do that. So we have a strange situation in which for a long time industry, farming and whatnot, and I'm not sure what the exact solution to this is going to be, but it seems right now that there's a tension going on because agriculture wants these workers or needs these workers, and are attracting them here and offering employment for them. And we've sort of liked for them to be in the shadows. Now, we've allowed them to be illegal because it also kind of keeps their price down. Now, I think if there were some system by which they could legally come and work, there would be less tension and less undercutting of the American workers' salary. So what struck me was that yes, that this population that we've been that have become a part of, and they pay taxes. So their businesses are declared. They pay taxes, but they do not have any sort of representation. So I think there's something going on there with the redistricting thing that's interesting, and it's certainly a different place than it was 10 years ago. And I saw that directly by Tucker, which is kind of in a corner of the district. Seems to me that the rest of the district almost doesn't even know we're here.
Mr. Keatley, let me change direction. In the last several elections, going back from 2012, 14, and now 16, the messaging, the Democrat messaging, and some have said, you listen to the media, the Democrats had a failed message. And you've seen the election cycle. I think it's 36 governor houses, state houses, state senate, the House of Representatives, and now the Senate and the executive office. As a Democrat running in a traditionally, thus far, Republican district, do you have a different kind of Democrat message for the district? Or, I mean, how do you see the message that just came out with the Democrats and the new elected Tom Price as the chair? What message do you have that may be different that could help you get elected in this race?
That is the principal question, and that's the reason that I got into this race. I have talked with a lot of people. I'm a veteran. I served in the United States Navy for 7 years as an officer, first on the USS Donald B. Berry. I was an engineer in charge of the lives of 42 men when I was 22 years of age. So I understand what it means to serve my country. And I think that dividing everything into these parties of saying, I'm always on this side, I'm always on that side, and looking at it as if it were a football game is one of the reasons we're in this stalemate right now. I do think Democrats have had a problem with messaging, and it's not always about policy. I think very often the Democrats have more reasonable, or in most cases, I am a Democrat, and I grew up in a working class family, and I think it's thanks to the worker protections that we had, the protection of jobs and of unions and of people's hearing in factories that gave me the stability when I was growing up to be able to be the first person in my family to go to college. And I went to school on an ROTC scholarship, and then eventually to get my PhD also on scholarship. So I think we've had a problem as Democrats more in finding a person that people on both sides can trust and say, that's the person, who served his country. He wants to do what's right, and he will look at the actual issues rather than just deciding on this team of we're Democrats, we have to beat the Republicans, or we're Republicans, we have to beat the Democrats. I think that 95% of issues, there's got to be a solution there that is best for the American people, for our defense, for jobs, to keep our water and air clean. I don't think, anyone really wants to go back in the 70s when our rivers caught on fire. So, I mean, that's what I think is different. I think the fact that I've lived the American dream, some people in my family voted for Donald Trump, and I understand where these people come from. And so I've been talking to people, and the people I've had the best reception from. I met this guy in McDonald's the other day, veteran. He had a Vietnam hat on and an Airborne Ranger insignia on his hat. And so I went up to him and I said, just want to let you know, sir, on April 18th, you can vote for a veteran. He did not even ask me what my party was. We talked for 5-10 minutes. He told me about how he was drafted, how he thought he was going to go to Germany, and then they sent him to Vietnam. And in the end, he told me twice. He said, I'm going to vote for you, sir, because you're a nice guy. And so that's what I think the issue has been oftentimes, that by seeking too much to fit people into these boxes of party loyalty, that sometimes we pick the wrong person to go at the top of the ticket.
All right, well, staying on the, right now, Democrats going to Washington, D.C., the 6th Congressional District, we know that it has been a Republican stronghold up till now, when President Donald Trump only won the 6th District by 1.5%, somewhere in that area. Tom Price, Congressman Price, John McCain, and Mitt Romney won the district in double digits. So I do know that Democrats feel there's an opportunity here at this time. But is there something that, if elected in still a pretty strong Republican district with the possibility of getting a Democrat in the seat, is there anything that you could think of on taxes, on this health care plan, something that you could get on board with the president and be your own man when you got there? I mean, I think a lot of Americans are tired of hearing Republican and Democrat, and they'd like for somebody to go and be their own person and represent them and maybe find common ground with the president. What say you?
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been saying the entire time that being anti-Trump or being pro-Trump is a mistake, that we need to be for or against what is best or not best for the American people. And so certainly if the proposal on the Affordable Care Act is going to offer lower costs and more access to health care and reduce the administrative burden, the incredibly complicated, Baroque sort of system that we have, that you receive a bill and it says the original cost was $1,200 and then it was $111 and then you're going to pay $17 now, and then you get another bill for $40 from another place, and no one can figure out what's going on. If we come up with, if President Trump comes up with a solution that improves that, of course, I'll support it.
Now, in the last 8 years, we'll just go back 8 years, Republicans, they were being labeled in the media as the party of no, and some would say they were obstructing, and they also obstructed President Obama's Supreme Court justice pick for a year, not bringing him up for a vote or at least the hearings. Do you feel that it's time to stop that? And what I'm meaning is, if you went to Washington, D.C., right now, I mean, to me, a lot of Democrats, or most of them, are in lockstep, and you would be in the House with, Nancy Pelosi, and, just recently, would you have paralleled Nancy Pelosi's, Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi's request for Jeff Sessions to resign? Would you accept that as a Democrat from the 6th District if you were there and you came out and the TV cameras asked you your opinion on Nancy Pelosi's comments? What say you?
Well, yeah, Nancy Pelosi's comments. Of course, Nancy Pelosi is a charged name here in the South. They like. I
understand. I'm not interrupting you, but she is the minority leader in the House. So that's the reason.
She is the minority leader, and I believe that as a veteran, as someone who served my country, my grandfather, my father, and me were all in the United States Navy when we were fighting the Russians. And this Russia thing is this is the first time we've had this kind of, and I'm not saying complicity. We have the suspicion of complicity and the refusal to acknowledge that our security is more important than our party. So everyone's going on one side or the other. I think we should have a bipartisan investigation into what Russia's role is in the current administration and what they were doing during the elections. We cannot have the Russians, whose current leader was the ex-head of the KGB, interfering in American democracy. That's not what we're about.
Okay, I don't disagree with that, but I mean, I'm pretty much, I like to look at the whole entire picture, so I'm not gonna go backward on that. So when you say a bipartisan review, or, you know, many, and Nancy Pelosi called for this, so you would advocate a special prosecutor or a bipartisan review? What, I mean, which one would it be? Would you go as far as say special prosecutor?
That's a good question. I'm not sure who's called for a special prosecutor.
It's been called for several times.
Yeah, I think for now, I think the bipartisan investigation seems to be moving forward, and I think that it's being conducted by both sides, and so unless there was some appearance of obstruction on one of the sides, or some refusal to give information, I'm not sure we need a special prosecutor at this time.
Okay. And I'm not trying to get stuck on that subject. It's just if you were to be elected and you go to Washington D.C. and you represent the 6th District in the House as a Democrat, these are some of the things that are coming up. And I mean, you know, like, would you support asking Jeff Sessions to resign, or are you okay with, and it's just an example, with Jeff Sessions saying he would recuse himself? So it's things like that I'm looking at. For example, this morning, they don't want to, they're trying to, Senator Blumenthal, this is on the Senate side, wants to slow down the nomination process for the Assistant Attorney General. So it's that kind of gridlock that I think people are tired of.
Yes, it is. And Senator Sessions is you know, I think there's you know, it is a bit of a problem that he didn't recall, I guess, the having talked with the Russians when he was under oath in his hearings, and that seems sort of strange to me from someone who's a lawyer that knows, you know, the implications. It's not like, you know, taking someone off the street and putting them under oath. He certainly understands what the implications of being under oath are. So it is a serious concern, and it is good that he recused himself from that. I'm not sure if he has to resign yet. I think that's something that the president and he are going to have to figure out as they see the degree to which he actually intentionally or not lied under oath. Now, if he did, if it was something intentional, and there's just a lot of details, as you mentioned, that's a sort of inflammatory side issue. I think that takes away from more important issues such as the Affordable Care Act.
I agree with that.
That are actually going on. You know, so I mean, every time we go down these side roads and just, you know, jump up and down and try and attack one another, that stops us from talking about the important issues that are actually going on.
I agree. The important issues, and let's switch gears. I agree with that. On your website, you discuss advocating for education, that you're a product of public education. And so
Sure.
let's go with some things that you're seeing with Betsy DeVos. Maybe that's maybe something in the Department of Education you support with Betsy DeVos, something maybe you disagree with. So how would you like to comment concerning education?
Yes, well, the problems with DeVos so far have not been what she's necessarily proposed, because I'm not sure she's come out with a plan yet, but more about her personal history and how much she's actually dedicated to the idea of a public education for everyone. As you mentioned, I did attend public schools from kindergarten through 12th grade, and we had really good schools. And I think that's a necessary service that we have to have. So I'm generally not in favor of a whole-scale providing of taxpayer money to private schools. I think private schools are great. For example, some of my colleagues that are running for this position have been to really good private schools rather than public schools, and that's great. But I don't think that we need to take my taxpayer dollars here in Tucker. The largest portion of my taxes goes to schools, and give them to the private schools that cost $35,000 a year. So a family in the 6th district, median income is around $85,000 a year. Even a family making $85,000 a year, which is an okay salary, giving them a voucher for the $35,000 a year private school, I don't think is going to help them. So I just think we need to be very careful as to what the wording is. We should certainly help nonprofit private schools that are performing well, because that's another issue, is that private schools are less controlled. Now they can get away with a lot more things, and so I think if we ever give taxpayer money, they certainly need to fall under the same sort of requirements for performance and for accessibility. I have some friends who have special needs students, autistic students, and the public schools have a requirement to accommodate those students that private schools don't. So it's a very complex issue. And so the problem with DeVos's nomination for most of us was that she had in the past seemed less than appreciative of how great America's public school system is. It was founded with our nation as one of the pillars of democracy, because we cannot have democracy with an ignorant populace.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you there. Let's go to about 3 more things that I want to make sure we cover in this race. Something I've asked every single candidate in a roundabout way. We're coming up on the debt ceiling on March 15th. They gave an open-ended, I call it an open-ended checkbook on the debt ceiling back in 2015, and that was Mitch McConnell and President Barack Obama and former Speaker John Boehner. So now, in a couple weeks, the debt ceiling's coming up. We're right on the edge of $20 trillion. Now, the reality is, yes, the debt went up under George Bush. Yes, the reality is that Republicans have had the debt go up. That's true. But it almost doubled in the last 8 years. Now, one more thing before I leave you with this, because I hear all the time that what President Trump is, trying to announce and introduce would blow a hole in the deficit. But many economists say by $10 trillion in the next decade, but many economists say no matter if Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump was elected and nothing happened, the debt would automatically go another $10 trillion. So taking the Republican-Democrat out of it, I'm getting to my question. What say you on the national debt? What say you on the debt limit? What are we going to do to get this debt under control and maybe pay it off one day? What say you on the national debt?
Yes, I agree that that's a very serious issue, and that it seems that when we have one-party control, we have even more spending. So that the only time we've had a balanced budget, I guess, in the last 60 years was under the Clinton administration with a Republican majority in Congress. So that I think that a bipartisan look at this, the Democrats have to take the question seriously, because it's a hugely important issue. And I believe that Republicans also have to take the question of reducing some of their favorite funded programs. I'm a military man, and I believe that's our most important issue, is maintaining our security. But for Trump to just come out and say 10% increase without saying why we need the 10% increase is not a wise use of our funds. So, yeah, I think we need to really first tackle the question of the deficit, because debt is never going to come down without deficit reduction and hopefully elimination someday. But we can't do it by chopping off the parsley on the Grand Slam breakfast. Every time we come to the table, it's let's chop, a little bit more off of education, which is like 0.8% of it. I don't have the exact number, but it's a very small amount compared to entitlement programs and the military. And of course, those are things that everyone loves. And it's very difficult to do that. We just have to figure out how much we can actually give to those things that we love. I love my mom, but there's only so much money I can send her when the urge comes, right?
So, I hear you, but so what exactly do you propose that we start doing? When I say serious, I'm serious about it, and I'm not doubting you're serious too, but how serious is it time? Because if every politician says entitlements are off the table, and that includes the current president of the United States, if every politician says Social Security is off the table, entitlements are off the table, if every entitlement's off the table, what do we ever do to try to bring some control back in on the deficit spending and get a handle on the debt? So that's my concern.
Well, as a working class person, I believe that what you're calling entitlements, which in many ways are Social Security, I don't really consider an entitlement. We pay into that system.
Well, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So I think that for lower, for not just lower wage, but people making a normal wage, let's say below $100,000, and we would have to study this and figure out exactly how it will work. But we should do our best not to change the parameters of what they receive. I do think that we've gone with the idea that money that comes from work is for some reason taxed more than money that comes from investment. And, I have some money in a retirement account too, and it's nice to think that I could, maybe not pay any taxes on it ever. But I think that earnings are earnings, and we should tax earnings equally. Everyone got a lot of attention that Mitt Romney and Warren Buffett pay, a lower percentage than their secretaries. I think that has to, the fundamental fairness of that has to be addressed. And by raising the Social Security age on everyone, it's fine for people like me who are, in a job where I'm not, wearing my body out or whatnot. But a lot of working class people, to raise the age once again, it's now 67. To raise it again, it's much harder if you're working as a construction worker or things like that. So yeah, I think that we need to make it our first priority as far as giving a number as to where to cut off. That's a really difficult question. That's obviously more difficult than the Affordable Care Act question, because no one's proposed anything on it except for the Republican Congress that has basically just said, okay, we're going to chop off the numbers here and make people figure it out. And by doing that, they haven't been able to do anything for entitlement programs because they're too important, and they've had to chop off everything else, infrastructure and, which is a small part of the thing. So, I think we need to sit down in a bipartisan way and figure this out and start trading things like we do in our economy. You know, that we've come up with this idea that as Republicans we have to have everything that Republicans love, or we're traitors. And as Democrats, we have to protect everything that Democrats stand for, or we're traitors to the party again. And once again, I think we have to get down there and do some horse trading and talk with smart people. I think if we had more veterans in the Congress, we would have this, because there's a great Air Force veteran on the ticket too. I don't know if you've talked to him yet, but he's a guy I would trust in Congress. And so I think, but if we had people that were actually talking on both sides of the aisle, that we would be able to address this issue.
All right, Mr. Keatley, I got to wrap up, but at the same time, I don't want to leave with a couple. With 18 candidates, obviously you have 11 Republican candidates going to, my words, divide up Republican vote. You have 5 Democrats at this time, according to some polling and some media outlets. It seems to be that John Ossoff is getting the media attention in this race as leading on the Democrat side, and maybe even in the total race on the 6th district. How do you plan to are you concerned as a Democrat when you're seeing this attention in not a primary, but an open election, that some of it's already coming from the DNC that looks to be supportive of Ossoff? How do you plan to work around that to try to get enough Democrat votes to maybe even get into a runoff?
Yes, I am a little bit concerned about that. I'm not a politician. I got into the race because I was disappointed that my own party was not participating in the process. You mentioned that Tom Price won with 62% of the vote last time. The Democrat that ran, named Rodney Stooksbury, somehow went through the process and ran unopposed in the Democratic primary, and then did not even put up a website. He did not report $1 of contributions to the FEC. So something there is wrong with the process. I think that Republicans are stronger when Democrats are there holding their feet to the fire, and vice versa. And so it was almost a promise to myself that we had to do this. It is, I guess, a consideration whether or not, it's the people that are deciding who their candidates are, or parties. And I think that works on both sides. And yeah, my approach is to knock on doors and to talk to people and to let them know that I'm an honest person that'll try and find solutions to their problems, and that I'm smart enough. I got enough. I've studied things in my life. I can read 600-page documents, and I will not sign, or rather vote on, things that I think are purely political. This has been a huge problem on both sides, and I've seen it more in our district on the Republican side, simply because it's been, our votes have been on the Republican side. But once you voted once to repeal the Affordable Care Act, I don't feel that it's an efficient use of funds of the federal government to vote 80 times to repeal it, when they knew that it was going nowhere at that time. Now is a different situation. They have control of Congress, they have control of the Senate, they have control of the presidency. So now is the time that you have to act. But to make just purely political votes, even Tom Price's refusal to require background checks for suspected terrorists, is what I consider a political vote. And it didn't really have any effect because it wasn't going to pass anyway. But in my opinion, as a military person, and as a fan of outdoor sports, I think that there are reasonable gun control issues, measures that can be taken that all people would agree with. But, of course, people are paralyzed on the Republican side of the NRA coming down on them with the wrath of God and money to kick them out if they ever say that they don't love guns more than everything else. And so I would, if in Congress, read everything that I vote on and vote what I think is best for the district.
So you don't oppose the Second Amendment, you just feel there should be some, no, I didn't hear you say that, I'm not saying you did, but you're saying there should be some different laws and requirements where background checks and things of that are concerned, that the NRA always, not your words, but where some feel the NRA puts fear into those candidates that anything in that area is anti-Second Amendment. Am I right down the right direction?
Yeah, that's my general impression is that, and it may be trying to attract funding more than fear of retribution that's going on, because sometimes it seems that not so much in the National Assembly, but sometimes locally they'll pass like I love guns laws that I think probably gets them some NRA donations and whatnot, and then they'll sometimes be thrown out because they're not really doing anything.
I've gone well over the allotted time, but there was so much to cover. Can I ask maybe just two really quick questions? One, just yesterday, I mean, I'm going to ask the quick question. We got to have quick answers on both ends. Just yesterday, President signed what is considered travel ban extreme vetting 2, or however you want to phrase it. Yes or no on that, or would you approve what the president did yesterday on the?
Well, yeah, I do think that the president's extreme vetting thing is a rhetorical action that does not address the problem of terrorism, because we've had 0 terrorists come from Syria, and on 9/11 we were attacked by 19 Saudi Arabian terrorists. So most of our attacks have come from the countries that we have very strong economic relationships with, is the problem. So we, and I'm not saying just the Trump administration, because he used the list that the Obama administration made for them, and that the Bush administration too had used. The question is, are we really willing to call the countries that are actually sponsoring terrorism on this issue? But by placing the limit on refugees, in my opinion, seems like an attack on the weakest of the people and the people that are least likely to be terrorists. Granted, we have to do a screening, and we do a 2-year screening program already.
Okay, you have to.
So yeah, I think it's.
Well, we have to get by. You have to get past. Actually, my words again. Not your strategy, but basically, you have to run right now against Ossoff to try to get the Democrat vote in the 6th district. But you're going to have to also reach out and probably get some Republican vote too in that district. And do you have anything planned on? Is there any kind of debate set up or forum set up where you can go, with Ossoff on the stage, or is there anything planned for you to get your message out to the candidates, with the opposing candidates with you?
Yes, there is a Democratic candidate forum this weekend on Sunday in Roswell, and so all 5 of the Democrats will be there to discuss issues. And then on the date, it's toward the end of the month, Brand Bank is sponsoring at the Cobb Energy Center a candidate forum for all 18 of us. and that's going to be interesting to see how that works. They'll probably get
Okay.
one question apiece in the
Let's
because there's so many of us.
Let's close this with the question I've asked every candidate. Let me give you an opportunity to say specifically on the 6th district, what do you want to go represent the 6th district? What are the needs there that you want to focus on in that district if elected?
Jobs in the economy, number one issue in the 6th district. I think there's some serious issues with things dealing with the airlines, with Delta. I've been talking with the Airline Pilots Association and the issues of cabotage and all that. So anything that protects and builds, contributes to building jobs in the district would be the number one priority. Defense is number two for me, the safety of the American people, because all of the other issues that we as Americans believe in, and protecting the rights of individuals, of protecting the rights of minorities, don't mean anything if we don't feel safe as a nation. I also believe that the number one issue probably that anyone's going to debate is going to be the how we address healthcare reform. And we should, I believe, try and involve both parties. That hasn't been the way it's been working in the past. It would require the Republican majority to try and include some people. But if they were to propose something that had some sort of enticement to be able to get 30 Democrats on a bill, I think it would be much more palatable to all of the American people. We've been going for a long time, I don't know how long, but generally one party proposes and passes something and then the entire other party opposes it. And if you don't get some people on board from both sides, I think it's going to be hard to address these really difficult issues.
Well, Mr. Keatley, we appreciate you this morning for coming on. We thank you for being with us this morning during this interview. We want to tell you, like we tell every candidate, we thank you for your willingness to serve, and we wish you well during your campaign. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss these important things.
Thank you. Thank you again. Have a nice day. We've been talking with Mr. Dr. Richard Keatley. He's a registered Democrat there on the Georgia 6th Congressional District. John Ossoff is also a Democrat, which actually is the front runner. And a lot of money is being poured into this campaign, and it's being looked at nationally. So I'm your host, VKP. I'm going to take a brief break. When I come back, we'll wrap up the show. A couple brief comments before it's time for the Katie Sassine Show. Lonnie, take us to break.
At Days Chevrolet in Jasper, we make everything better. It all starts with a huge new Chevy selection. Then we heap on the discounts to make sure your Chevy price is the lowest you'll find anywhere. And if you like great customer service, you'll love it at Days. Bigger selection, lower prices, easy financing, and great customer service. Your better day is just ahead at Days Chevrolet in Jasper, where new Chevys cost less.
Better days ahead, Days Chevrolet.
Find new roads.
El Rey and Ellijay.
El Rey Mexican Restaurant.
Family owned and operated, and a local favorite for families, parties, and meetings.
Great prices.
Friendly service and delicious Mexican cuisine.
Patio dining available.
Come sing in Carlos's Cantina every Friday 9 to 1.
Eat in or take away.
Same location for 14 years. Open 7 days at the corner of Maddox Drive and 515. North Georgia's favorite Mexican cuisine.
El Rey.
El Rey and Ellijay.
North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds. Come on in to view the area's largest selection of fine jewelry at North Georgia Diamond. All repairs and designs are done on site by our jewelers. And North Georgia Diamond has the lowest prices on loose diamonds. You can also sell your gold, silver, and coins at North Georgia Diamond between Walmart and Lowe's in East Ellijay. Locally owned by Bill and Allison Craig, North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds in North Georgia.
It's a new year, new you at Schottenkirk Ford Jasper. Ring in the new year with huge deals on a brand new Ford. Right now, get exceptional offers like 0% financing plus a $1,500 factory rebate on a new 2017 Ford F-150 XLT. Or get 0% financing plus a $1,000 factory rebate on a new 2017 Ford Explorer. Make your resolution a reality during the New Year, New You sales event at Schottenkirk Ford Jasper, home of the Schottenkirk Customer Guarantee. Visit us online at SchottenkirkFordJasper.com.